Welcome. Still can't hear me. Well, this is really good. So we'll hang on
Hello,
now.
Mira. I think we're live, but you are not heard.
All right, I can hear you.
You may
So
have to hit the microphone next to your name, above your name. Now that muted it.
now it has. Just make sure. Hello? Can you hear me now?
Okay, we seem to be having some technical issues. If people are here, if they could post their name and where you're from in the comments section, it would be greatly appreciated. My name is Mark Calper. I will be joined by my wife, Mira, who you can see, as soon as she is able to get the technical challenges.
How's that? Is that? Whoops. Nope. Don't want to do that.
Tonight we're going to be discussing helping your child go from stress to success, and how do you actually assess for success. And my name is Mark Halpert. Be joined in a moment by my wife Mira, who's the founder of the 3D Learner Project program. And let me tell you a little bit about us, and as we get rolling, we have 4 kids. Our second kid was a 3D learner, but we didn't know it. 8th grade, we were at a meeting before high school. The guidance counselor suggested putting her on a vocational track for high school. We discovered she was in fact a 3D learner, and Mira put together a program that helped her improve her reading comprehension 4.2 grade levels in 7 months. Then, as Mira started to help other kids, she realized she needed an assessment. And as we talk about this tonight, what we're going to discuss at the end is a process that actually has evolved over the last 25 years. To how do you really understand how a kid learns best, where they're strong, where they're weak, whether they have any vision or auditory issues, do they have an attention issue, and what's their present level of reading comprehension.
Can you?
Are you there?
Reading comprehension. Can you hear me?
No, but we're gonna
go ahead anyway.
Mira will join us as soon as she does.
This is so frustrating, I have to tell you, because it is.
Let's get going here. Okay. So we'll discuss eight characteristics of students and parents. Our students tend to have many, if not all, of these characteristics. They're often a lot smarter than results would indicate. They're often a right brain learner, which means they have more activity on the right side of their brain. And the way that manifests itself is they learn best when they see and experience information. They often have visual processing and motor planning issues. They also have working memory, processing speed, and attention issues. And they may not remember words, even for the previous paragraph, that they've seen but not mastered. And then they have those difficulty with those small words and what the, but if, because those words don't generate a picture. And they can struggle for years, or they can be much more successful within months. And given the schools have tended to go much more what I call left brain with logical, sequential, and auditory explicit instruction, they need to rely on their parents to find a solution that actually plays clear stress. Now, what are the key challenges these kids face? One is delays in getting school-based assessments. About 10 years ago, I was sitting in the Office of Special Education Programs Director for the United States government, And I raised my hand when she asked her any questions. And I said, there's this process in public schools called response to intervention, now called multi-tiered system of support. And the schools are just delaying the process. They're saying, we got to finish this before we can do that. And Melody Musgrove said, I wrote a letter saying that's not allowed. RTI cannot be used to delay or deny an evaluation. And that has become the law of the land. For anybody who wants it on our website, in our resources section, or at www.3dlearner.com/RTI-MTSS, there's a copy of that letter, and there's a copy of a letter you can send to schools that will expedite the process. Then part of the challenge is school-based assessments are really only used to identify or rule out a disability. They're not actually used to discover what a kid's strengths are. Now, a lot of parents go outside, and psychoeds can be incredibly helpful, but they too often focus on weaknesses. And we've seen some reports where parents are giving 2 or 3 recommendations. God knows how you do that. And others where they say, just give the kid a list of items to do. And when we had one recently where the kid had 131 IQ, which means, or verbal comprehension index, which means he really understood words, but he was 2 standard deviations in the gifted range on that, but he was also well below average, like in the 12th percentile on processing speed, meaning how quickly he actually processed information. And there were no recommendations on that. And as I said, the recommendations can be overwhelming.
Hello?
And again, are much more likely to be deficiency focused rather than strength-based focus. And we've never actually read a report that actually says, this is how your child can be outrageously successful. And the 3D learner, that's really our goal, is how do you help a kid be outrageously successful? Oops. One of the questions parents ask me is, what would outrageous success look like? And outrageous success really is not specifically defined. Each parent, with us in many cases, actually defines what it looks like. For a lot of our clients, they'll come to us and say, the school says my child can't make more than a year's gain in reading comprehension, which turns out to be one of the most major issues for a right brain learner. And in fact, the goals we have are often have kids make 2 or 3 year gains in reading comprehension. And we've actually had kids make 4-year reading gains in 6 months. And again, to get those key issues identified and addressed, because God knows if you can't remember your times table, you can't remember spelling, you can't remember the 3 instructions that a mom may have given you, it's probably because you have a poor working memory. Just like if you're always impulsive, I talk to these kids who play baseball, they always hit the ball foul down the third base line because they're swinging too early. Well, you can identify that with a good assessment, but you can also improve that so they become better readers and better in sports.
So can you hear me now?
Major goals that Mira and the whole team is phenomenal at is how do you ignite a love for learning? One young lady went from the worst reader in her class to the best, and from a non-reader to an avid reader, reading 720 pages in 1 month. And her dad asked, how did that happen? She said, Dad, they taught me how to create a video out of what I was reading. Do you know how cool that is? And again, in her case, as many others, you want a kid to be proud of who they are and actually to have much more time to be a kid and anxiety. And Trish, welcome. Okay. But really, from our perspective, the definition of what outrageous success would look like is really parents dependent. Parents decide what that looks like. Now, what is a 3D learner? Okay. There's a case here where the young lady, she just follows directions. I'll do A, then B, then C. Great. Her brother is sitting there with thinking pictures. Now, we actually saw this live in action when we were with a videographer and a producer for ABC, and the lady who was a producer thought words, and Mira said, "What do you see when I say the word book?" And she said, "BOOK." The videographer looked like she was out of her mind, but in fact, that's what she saw. He saw a specific book. When they got back to the office, every producer saw BOOK, and every videographer saw a book. So it's a
Now,
lot of that.
this is the reason. Can you hear me? This is the reason that you
questions.
actually have to.
What are
Trish,
the
you can
risks?
hear me. Is that correct?
The risks are huge. Okay. And we look at it. It turns out that when a kid's not reading by third grade, their chances of dropping out of high school increase fourfold. Lots of problems. So when we look at this, the first risk we see is process getting delayed. Again, use our RTI page to actually expedite the process. And then too often children are denied services. They're denied services, and this is why we often recommend that you get, I lost my train of there. You get an advocate to help you in meetings, or at least bring a spouse, because these meetings can get contentious. We found that you want to really understand the process and make sure that if your child really gets it, it works. Then they're also, when they get out, parents are often overwhelmed. When we get a psycho-ed report, we actually often translate it. Mary, are you there?
I am, and supposedly our people can hear us, but they can't hear you. So this is going to be a really interesting presentation.
Programs help, but they're often focused on a splinter skill, phonics or phonemic awareness, or a listening program. Those are all good things to do, but they don't necessarily address the whole things. And parents are frustrated because nobody ever tells you how to parent a kid who thinks differently and is a genius at certain things, and at other things it seems like they're not home. That's who our kids are. Opportunities. One, expedite evaluations. If you download our letter this morning, I would recommend handing it in tomorrow, or call us, and we'll give you our contact information later, and we'll help you through that process. Evaluations, I've seen them approved within a day when you have the right letter, but you have to do it in writing, and I recommend actually getting a signed receipt that says you got it. Set bold goals. I've been in meetings where principals say we never set goals that bold. And I said, there's no way the kid's going to get back to grade level without it. And we got them to do things they've never done before. But the teacher said, but if the kid gets help only twice a week, he can never accomplish those goals. And the principal said, that's what I think Mark's driving at. I guess we're going to have to increase the number of times. The kid got 4 times a week. So goals drive actions. The opportunities is really to understand and appreciate your child's strengths. These kids are so smart, but the discrepancy between their strengths and their challenges is amazing. So it's really critical to understand both their strengths and the areas of weakness. And present level of performance, I've been in meetings where a teacher or guidance counselor said, Johnny is reading a 9th grade level, he's in 10th grade, he's only a year behind. I said to the psychologist, please assess his reading comprehension. It turns out her numbers were the same as mine. He was 6 years below grade level. Reading is far different than reading comprehension. And the other thing is to get the opportunity to get a detailed action plan that's designed to help your child be outrageously successful. Now, how our process works, it's really focused on the whole child. Initial goal is to identify strengths, how a child learns best, and to identify their weaknesses, and at the same time boost self-esteem. We'll often see a child, as we did last week, a 7th grader who's at college level on 8 skills and at elementary school level on 9 skills. Not unusual for a right brain learner. And again, the key goal is to tailor a plan to meet your child's needs. And we actually look at all 10 of these items. I won't go through them in detail, but we look at reading levels. Word recognition turns out to be a key issue for these kids. High frequency words, the words that make math word problems so difficult to understand. They don't understand the words with multiple meanings. Working memory is often 2 or 3 standard deviations, which means one might be 120, one might be 85. This is not unusual because they can remember what they see, but they often don't remember what they hear. It's not willful disobedience. They actually do not remember. Processing speed, we've seen kids who read real slowly, but they also cannot transition from one task to the next. So they go from math class to social studies class, and they're somewhat confused in the whole process. Okay. And okay. And motor planning. They can often not only pay attention, but they're often uncoordinated, or at times they can actually be super coordinated at certain things, but not at others. And it's really critical to understand what the parents want and then tailor a plan to meet that. Okay. And we're almost done here. Okay, how does 3D Learner do this? We use structure of intellect assessment, designed in 1943 by J.P. Guilford, who was a psychologist, brought in by the U.S. Army. 44% of the kids were failing the pilot's course. He said, what do you use for determining who would be a good pilot? They said, intelligence and vision. He said, what makes you think that makes a good pilot? They said, Dr. Guilford, that's why you're here. His assessment, the structure of intellect, helped drive the passing rate from 56% to 92%. He became an unsung hero of World War II, and he came out of the war and said, I could do the same thing for kids. So he's designed an assessment that looks at how a child learns best, where they're strong, where they're weak. I showed this in a school meeting once. This 27-year-old psychologist questioned the report. The special educational professional said, this is the best thing we ever used. She went through all the benefits that I just alluded to. And the principal said, that was a terrific report. Why do we stop using it? She said, because the federal government requires to find what's wrong with a kid, and 3D Learner has the luxury of using the report for what it's designed for, which is to tailor a program that will help the kids succeed. We also use the interactive metronome, where kids matching the beat, and we often see it shows to the millisecond how close a kid is. Very often our kids can pay attention for 2 minutes, maybe even 3, but then all of a sudden it's somewhere between the 3 and 6 minute mark, they lose focus. And we say to them, how does that compare to what happens at school? And they say, that's exactly what happens at school. The good news is you can both know that what the problem is, and then the interactive metronome can be used as a tool to improve it. The next thing we use is the Physiograph. And if this actually works, I'm going to show a quick video of a Physiograph. If this works, I think it may not. Okay. What it basically shows is it shows how a child's eyes track when reading. And what they do is they skip words and lines when reading. And if you read it the same order, it's almost impossible. But if you actually go back and do the training, they can actually read much more efficiently and effectively within a matter of 6 weeks to 3 months. And then in terms of how does this manifest itself? Well, we had a second grader who was reading at the kindergarten level, comprehending at the kindergarten level. After 2 years of phonics-based instruction, we assessed her, and sure enough, she was a visual learner. She had an attention issue. She had a visual processing issue, a motor planning issue, working memory. And within 4 months, she was reading at the second grade level, and she gained 3 years after 7 months. But she also she loved reading now. She read 23 chapter books in 6 months. She became a much better dancer because she was remembering her steps, and her coordination was better. We had a third grader whose parents were told he wasn't going to succeed in private school to actually go find another one, even though she was on the board. He gained 3 years of reading comprehension within a year, and this teacher said he made more progress than ever. Anyone she'd had 27 years, and we had a 5th grader who was reading really slowly, comprehending at the 1st grade level. Homework was taking 2.5 hours for the kid and 2.5 hours for the mom. With our help, the kid gained 4 years of reading comprehension, doubled her reading speed, cut her homework time in half, and cut the time her mom needed to be there from 2.5 hours down to 15 minutes. And lastly, how can you get hold of us or go for more information? You can go to 3dlearner.com and download our strengths and challenges overview. Gives you a real sense of which strengths and which weaknesses your kids have. If anybody's got a need or wants to talk, we offer a no-cost consult you can have by calling us at 561-361-7495, or there's a schedule a meeting. You can actually go to 3dlearner.com/book now, where we have our schedule posted, and you can schedule a time. And then you can join us again next week. We're going to talk about goal setting for outrageous success. Same time, same station, June 1st at 9 p.m. Okay, and we encourage people to go to our 3D Learner YouTube channel, subscribe. We always love more subscribers, but also there'll be last week's video on it, this week's video will be on it, and we'll post future videos on it. Plus, there's some other great videos that will be helpful. And we're going to do one in the near future on laughter yoga, which I know Mira's just going to smile because it's one of her favorite exercises.
So I'm gonna tell Mark to stop for a minute because I can be heard, but he obviously cannot hear me. So I'm going to welcome all of you guys for being here tonight. See, flexibility, that's all that has to be able to do. So we're glad you joined us. I'm glad that you were able to be here and having us have a partner that can handle the presentation. If he can't hear me, it works. That's what 3D Learner is about. We're here to be able to support you. Please don't hesitate to contact us, and we are glad you joined us tonight. Thanks again. Hopefully see you soon.
Thank you very much.